Evening, guys. Welcome to Mastermind Content Meetup. This is month two, week five, and this month we're going to be looking at the ruler archetype, which is a very important archetype because it's central to helping how you create the reality that you experience. But because the ruler is the decision-making faculty of the brain, or essentially the neocortex, it's important to understand how this functions, but also to understand that it can be hijacked and dethroned by other parts of the brain, which then become a ruling archetype, but not necessarily the ruler. And these are the things that we'll discuss over the next 4 months. So let's first of all look at the ruler archetype. And in this month, we're going to be looking at the function of the ruler, how to identify this archetype, how to recognize which ruler is making most of your decisions, and how to make decisions and take decisive actions. But in tonight's meetup, I'm going to explain the function of the ruler in terms of how it creates our experience of reality. So, how does that potential that exists in the mind as the divine child become a lived experience in matter, mind to matter? So, we're also going to discuss the importance of setting an intention and explore how setting an intention helps you to get from where you are to where you want to be. We're also going to look at ways of bringing your ideas, desires, and goals that exist with the as potential with the divine child into the world through the ruler. So, if you mentioned in previous meetups, we've explained how the divine child is a potential only in the mind and in a feeling. And it's the function of the ruler, the decision making faculty of the brain, to decide what you need to do and then follow through on your intention. In other words, to align your behaviors with your intention. But that is easier said than done. However, it is a well known fact now that the way that we experience reality, or the way that we create our experience of reality, are through our thoughts, emotions, and actions. Now, we can extend that to our attitudes and motivations and desires. But these are the three principal functions of how we determine our response to the environment. How we respond is determined by our attitudes, motivation, and needs. But our attitudes, motivations, and needs are informed by the information stored as memory in the central nervous system. And this is why humans are creatures of habit. But we can choose to upgrade these memories by adding new information into the neural networks. And this is where we need to call on the ruler. This is where we need to develop the ruler to make the decisions to allow us to engage in experiences that give us new information, that teach us a new way of being, whether that's a new attitude, a new belief system, a new way of um, behaving in a certain situation. Because it's the quality of our decisions that is determined by the quality of information that we store as memory. And they really come through the other archetypes. So information is the equivalent to the qualities listed in the Mastermind Contents Archetype tool, which I've explained before. And the decisions that we make determine the outcome that you produce. So, of course, there are external factors that you have no control over, and some people would argue that we don't create our lives because of this. But what I'm proposing is that we do create our experience of reality by how we respond to certain situations. So, yes, external um, uh, external factors do have an influence on our lives, but it's how we respond to them that determines how we experience reality because we have control over our emotions or our attitudes or our needs. So, what is your emotional and physical response? These are the things that we need to observe in any particular situation because you have the choice to get angry and scream or shout, or you have the opportunity to be calm, shrug it off, and just let things go. Now, if you take the first option of getting angry, then you're increasing your stress levels, you're increasing your heart rate, and you're pumping cortisol and adrenaline into your body. If we do this often enough, then we have chronic stress, and chronic stress is the underlying cause of something like 90% of all doctors' visits. It's been linked with mental illness and physical illness. So, in this program, From Surviving to Thriving, we're going to look at ways of um, integrating the archetypes, which will help you to make better decisions and lower your stress levels. So, ideally, you need to be setting an intention. Now, what that looks like for you is going to be different for everybody. But an intention gives you a focus and a goal and values, principles, and boundaries to gear your behaviors towards. So let's have a look at why intentions are pretty important, because an intention is a declaration. So you declare that you're going to do something that you want to achieve. If you declare this to other people, then you're putting some pressure on yourself to actually go out and do it because you're more likely to do something meaningful that you're going to lose face on if you don't do it or embarrass yourself than if you do it and fail. What's actually better, trying to do something and failing or not doing anything at all and then regretting it? What would you say, Tim?
I think I've learned over the years um, from many years of running away from decisions and trying to hide from them.
Mm,
I've learned that have a go. If you do fail, what's the worst that can happen? You can either use it as a learning opportunity
yeah,
and still better yourself. So, have a go and get on with it.
yeah. You can also learn from your mistakes. Um, Sometimes we need to know how to not do something so that we can do it better. I think it was Edison said, I didn't fail at inventing the light bulb 10,000 times. I just found 10,000 ways of it didn't work.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
yeah, setting intention directs your attention towards fulfilling a specific goal. So, we need to decide on how we need to show up to be the best version of ourselves and to create the outcomes that we desire. So, I use this philosophy of creating healthy, positive, and constructive outcomes. So, an intention is a potential until it becomes manifest in reality. And it will only become manifest in reality when you take the necessary steps that align with your intention. So obviously it depends on what your intention is, determines what attitude you need to take, what belief systems you need to adopt, or what new skills you need to acquire. And these are all qualities, attributes of other archetypes. As I've explained before, in that pyramid of the evolution of the personality, you can identify and select a particular archetype which will serve a function for that right environment. But it's easy, it's easier said than done because of old habits and memories. So really, we need to be letting go of old habits so that we can bring in new ways of being. And I know from experience that old habits are hard to break. The thing is, a lot of these habits start as coping mechanisms. When we experience an emotional wound, for example, the brain decides, okay, what are we going to do now to make sure that we don't experience this pain again? Or how do we find comfort, joy, or sensation? So it finds these coping mechanisms, which then become habits, many of which become unhealthy habits or destructive behaviors or negative attitudes. So, to give you an example, this week I've needed to have more courage. So, my intention this week is to have courage and willingness to show up as my authentic self. So, I'm presenting a speech next Monday, and I want to feel confident about the message that I deliver resonates with my audience. So, rather than procrastinating, resisting, uh, learning the script and then just putting it off, I need to go through it every day in my head, but speak about it naturally as though I'm just having a conversation with them, not as though I'm giving a presentation. Because if I'm giving a presentation, I'm going to look like a professor or some kind of academic, and then it could cause a barrier between me and the audience. But if I just speak to them from heart to heart, because it's a message I believe it's a meaningful message that we all need to take notice of. And I want to appeal to the audience rather than inform the audience. The initial speech is about connecting rather than educating. So even though I'm repeating a script, I still need to appear authentic. So when you set an intention, do you have an intention this week, Tim, maybe, or recently that you felt as though you're resisting?
Not particularly an intention that I'm resisting. I've actually been able to achieve this week something that I'd set a goal for,
Okay, good.
which previously I would have worried about all day, every day, overthinking it, going through 14 different scenarios of what could possibly go wrong. And I've managed to catch myself doing it, stop myself doing it, and look forward to it rather than fear it. And
Right.
I'm quite celebrated myself and been able to give myself a pat on the back for doing that
Hmm.
because you've got to enjoy the small wins,
Yeah.
and I think
Yeah,
that
you do.
that builds new habits.
It is. It's an important point you make there that you are aware of going into hold habits. This is one of the things that I think we'll talk about next week. First of all, uh, you need to know where your destructive behaviors are. For example, like people pleasing, we feel as though we're doing that thing, these things for the people out of the kindness of our heart, but there's actually an underlying motivation that we want to be liked and needed. But it's the ruler even. It's the rational brain that is thinking that we're doing these things uh, ordinarily, consciously, because it's become a habit. But there's an unconscious motivation behind it, and this is where this is where the brain kind of plays tricks with us. But it's to protect uh, a fragmented or a fragile central nervous system. And again, I'll I'll talk more about that in a couple of weeks. But for now, I want to concentrate on intentions and explain why intentions change everything. Because as you just mentioned, it gives you focus, it gives you self awareness. And when you have that level of awareness, then you can stop yourself doing it because you know that you're going down the wrong path, chosen path. You're staying in your bubble, comfort bubble, whereas you need to step out of the comfort bubble to grow. So setting an intention creates clarity. Instead of feeling overwhelmed or pulled in 100 directions, you know what matters most in the moment. So you go the direction that you're meant to go. And that again is aligning your behaviors with your intention. it cultivates self-awareness. You become more mindful of your thoughts, habits, and emotions, and whether they're supporting your intention or whether they're sabotaging your growth. It inspires aligned actions, as I said, aligns your behaviors with your actions, and it builds momentum. So consistently moving towards your higher intention keeps you on track and builds momentum over time, even when you feel resistance, um, or or you're procrastinating. Is that ice cream van?
It is very tempting.
Yeah, it is in this weather. You don't often hear them with the bells on anymore. Okay, so that's basically it for the presentation. It's a quick one this week. Next week's a lot longer. But what are your takeaway points from this week, Tim? Do you have any?
Uh, just the realization of what I've actually achieved this week without actually realizing what I've done, if that makes sense. So the things that have
Okay.
come up on the slides,
Hmm.
uh, when you can start recognizing bits. Oh, hang on a minute, I did that on Tuesday, and over
Uh-huh.
the weekend I was stopping myself worrying about something and just taking it on board as if something positive is going to happen instead of focusing on the negatives or what may happen. And I've realised this week that I saw a phrase and it said most people have anxiety about things all day, every day, and they worry about things that have never happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you build an idea in your head of all the negative things
Mm.
when, you're worrying about something and very, very small percentage actually happen. It's all doom and gloom and worried about it rather than just looking forward to it and embracing it and involving yourself in it and taking it on board and just having a go.
Mm.
Um, I like the phrase, um, there's a big difference between try and triumph. You've got to give it a bit of oomph. And I think the oomph is where
Yeah,
you do your actions, where you take your actions points, where it's down to you. You've got to make those actions to be
mm.
able to try and get towards the triumph.
Yeah.
And you can try as many times as you like.
Mm.
It's not, there's no infinite way of stopping you, but you can try and try and try, give it a bit of oomph, and eventually there's going to be a triumph coming your way. And those umphs is your own actions. Okay, your first action might not work. What else can you do?
Yeah.
There's not always just one path that you need to take. You can do it in many different ways.
Yeah, that's true as well. Which you can see in the archetypes model. Sometimes you just need to adopt a different approach or a different attitude. Um, and even spontaneously, sometimes it's going to depend on the mood of the other person, how you respond and how they respond. This is obvious in a relationship, isn't it? That
Yeah,
you never know what's going to happen from one day to the next. If your partner wakes up in a bad mood or if they've had a bad day, and it's sometimes hard to change that round. So it's interesting what you're saying about worrying about things that never happened. For some reason, we have this negative bias, this built-in negative bias. Well, it's been we've been told it's built in, but I wonder whether it's a learned behavior because we're surrounded by negativity on the TV.
mine's definitely a learnt behaviour from my parents.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
so as well.
you know,
Me.
this week in the UK, when you're looking at 25, 26 degrees where we live today, I called in to see my mum on the way home from work, and she's greeted me with the, "Oh, it's hot." It's like,
Mm.
well, it was freezing last week, so which would you rather have, but then she then followed it up with, "But it's going to go cold again at the weekend." It's like, okay, so a double negative. Let's enjoy the weather today, shall we?
Yeah, my mum's like that as well. Um, living with her at the minute, it I can see why I got anxiety and depression because she's not deliberately negative. It's just the way she is, and she doesn't realize how her attitudes and our words kind of deflate my mood. And I have to kind of protect my own mental health
Yes.
by taking myself out of the negative environment and taking time for myself. But I also recognize that I have to look after her physical and emotional needs.
Yeah.
And she's got a massive self-esteem issue and a massive self-confidence issue. So I have to be careful to nurture that and make her feel as though she's needed and loved and useful.
And
But I
and
also,
that's partly playing the game of relationships, isn't it? Because
yeah,
now I can recognise my mum's processes and thoughts and way how she puts things across, and now I see them as learning things rather than taking it on board and acting in the same way. I can look at that and just think, you're talking about good weather and you're talking about bad weather, and you're talking about negative on both points.
mm,
Hang on a minute, let's just enjoy what we can enjoy.
yeah,
And I don't throw it back in the face or anything like that, but I try and take it on board myself of trying to rephrase my own thought processes of how she's coming across. And
hmm,
little things where to protect my own um, uh, mental health, really, from a media point of view, is I've stopped watching the news
oh yeah,
because everything's sensationalist and negative, and
yeah,
they talk to too many politicians,
mm,
so everything gets given a soundbite spin, and you can feel the effect of it on people,
mm,
and people just coming out with sound bites that they've heard from 2 seconds on the TV,
yeah.
and all of a sudden it's like doom and gloom. Oh,
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah, I think that's probably where the negative bias is coming from.
yeah,
The environments that we grow up in, and then if your parents are watching bad news and then they're feeling fear and they can't deal with their emotions, and that gets passed down. But yeah, you're right. I've not watched mainstream media since the late 90s. But then what I started doing was watching. Well, it wasn't so much alternative media then, but I was researching what's considered conspiracy theories, and I was watching quite a lot of things on YouTube. But then I stopped watching that as well because I'm thinking, well, that's fear mongering as well, and probably to a worse extent. That wasn't helping my anxiety and depression depression at all, because I was thinking, oh God, the government are after me. But then I just had to come to peace with things are how they are. I don't really have any control over them other than how I respond to them. So I've just come to accept the world is how it is, and I just have to try and fit in as best I can with the knowledge that I've got. And I think I have a vision. I can see potential things that might happen, but I'm not worrying about it anymore. I used to worry about it. Oh, what am I going to
yeah.
do? Because I didn't have the answers.
I think as well, I can focus on the point of what I'm doing now is, well, you know what? I'll focus on keeping my house in order.
Yeah, I think that's all you can do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's somebody mentioned the other day, what's your definition of success? Some people think it's having a big house and a big money. I think it's like taking control of your mind and feeling happy, being content and satisfied with your life.
Oh, the same thing as the start of the slides that you were showing about your thoughts, feelings, and emotions.
Mm.
Thoughts, actions, and emotions. If you can be more in control of all those to a satisfying outcome, so that you're more happy within yourself, surely you're winning.
Yeah, exactly. Precisely. Do you have any questions about what we spoke about today, about the ruler in general, or anything that we've touched on over the last 4 weeks. Anything you need me to clarify or expand on that you might help you right now?
Can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Okay, that's fine.
Um,
I guess that's a good thing, really.
yeah, yeah.
It's not something you've been mulling over all week, going, "Oh, I don't get what's happening here."
No, I think just I've been making notes each week, and I keep running my eyes across them, and picking bits out. Or some days I don't pick anything out, which is fine. But I allow myself to do that. But it's just a case of seeing if any of the words do pop out of me on the day. And I made a note last week about a vision and desire for consistency, and I've been able to achieve that this week. So that's a
Brilliant.
that's a bonus. Mm.
Okay, I'm going to stop this recording in a little while. Then we can just have a chat afterwards and go
Sure.
through anything that you want. But just one last slide. Next week, we're going to be looking at the strategies for integrating self-discipline. Because self-discipline is central to being self-directed. Self-directed is aligning your behaviors with your intention, and it is the superpower. Self-direction is a superpower of the ruler. And I'm also going to be discussing a Jungian idea of the self-ego axis. This is the two voices in your head. Which one's which one should we be listening to, and which one should we be quietening down? So that's next week is going to be very informative in understanding the ruler and which one's making your decisions. Okay, guys, thanks very much, and I shall see you next week. Take care for now. Bye bye. And if you want to know even more about how to use archetypes, then why not join me for weekly meetups on Zoom? For just £45 a month, you can get access to the Archetypes tool together with additional mindset tools for each archetype, plus an overview of the archetype sent directly to your inbox, plus insightful content each week that can help you reach self-awareness and transform your life. But the biggest benefit is the weekly meetups, which give you the opportunity to share your experiences and wisdom. You can tell us what you learned so that the rest of the group learn as well, because your knowledge can help others, and the knowledge of other people can help you. I know a lot, but I don't know everything. So my goal is for us to share these stories and experience, to discuss what we learn and provide advice for everyone who asks for it. So don't be shy to share a challenge if you're facing one, because there'll be somebody in the group that can offer advice that helps you get over that hurdle. Because look, together we're stronger. And with a community that is dedicated to personal growth, success and transformation, I believe more of us will grow faster and easier. So sign up today by clicking the link in the description and head over to the Mastermind Content website. Alternatively, send me a DM to arrange a free 30-minute discovery, which will leave you feeling energized and optimistic. I look forward to seeing you soon. I'm Richard Oldale, and this is Mastermind Content. Bye bye.